Hello and a really warm welcome to this brand new episode of the Money, Mindset and Miracles podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to share exactly how I manifested my dream second home. And when you hear the beginning part of this story, you're going to think it should have been a really simple path. However, it was far from simple. And I'm going to share with you the journey of manifesting this amazing property, but also the exact strategy I used to keep myself on track when everything was falling apart. I can't wait for you to hear this story. And I'm also going to be sharing a specific resource for you that you can use so that you can manifest whatever you desire. So let's get into this. So it all happened in 2016, and my father at the time had sole ownership of his parents' cottage. Now, this cottage is a place that myself and my siblings had spent our childhood visiting. It's very special to us. It's kind of really in a beautiful location. It's nestled in, if you're in the UK, you may know this area, but it's nestled in the North Yorkshire Moors in this tiny little village, and it's so picturesque and beautiful. And so this property has been in our village. This property has been in our family for generations. And at this moment in time, I'm going to say that it's been in our family for 100 years, definitely. And back in 2016, my dad owned this property. He had it rented out to some long-term tenants, and his own circumstances changed, and he decided that he wanted to live in a different location, which was going to mean that he needed to sell his current home and this property. So that was it. Decision was made. He decided to put it on the market. And I knew all this. And at the time it was May, and we were on holiday in Scotland with our children. And I just had this moment where, out of the blue, I just started thinking about the cottage and the fact that Dad was selling it. And I was like, I really would like this cottage for myself. And I was like, okay, let me just check in with my younger sibling, because we'd always kind of talked about owning it together. Checked in with her, and actually, no, it wasn't a great time for her to actually purchase another property. So it was down to me. And I was like, crikey, we had our children quite small at the time. We didn't have any plans to take on another property. We didn't necessarily have the money to take on another property, but it felt like it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And the more I thought about it, the more I could see myself and my family actually spending time just as I did when I was a kid. Now, there was a sticking point with all of this great idea that I had, and the sticking point was my husband. He had never ever set foot in this property because it had been rented out to long-term renters. So he'd walked past it, he'd driven past it, but he'd never actually set foot in it. And to be fair, I hadn't set foot in it for 20 years either. So back in 2016, I had started to discover the power of journaling and the power of visualization. And whilst I was on holiday in Scotland with the family, I just started to journal out what it would mean for me, what it would mean for my family to actually own this property. And I started to visualize us owning the property. And then I had to have that big grown-up conversation where I actually spoke to my husband and shared my dream of us owning this property. And thankfully, he was really open to pursuing it. So I contacted my dad, and he was like, yeah, that's totally fine. It's due to go on the market on Monday. So if you can get there before then of course you can have a look around it and see what you'd like to do. This was kind of like Wednesday. So we'd made arrangements to go over on the Sunday and view it. So I spent all of the rest of that week thinking about the cottage, dreaming about the cottage, journaling about the cottage, and visualising myself owning the cottage and spending time there. And we arrived on the Sunday, and this property had been, as I said, rented out for 20 years, and very little maintenance had happened to this property. It was in a really bad state. It was worse than I ever imagined it was going to be. And I kind of walked in with my family and I was thinking, my husband's not going to go for this at all, because it was a really big job. You could see immediately that there was so much that needed to be done to it. And I'm not one for forcing my plans through. I just thought, do you know what, I'm just going to go quiet now and just let my husband experience this property and just see what comes up for him. And the children were quite fascinating, actually. They did exactly what my siblings had been doing for years. They ran through the property, ran through the garden, down the garden path and straight into the little beck that runs at the bottom of the cottage. It's not too deep. They weren't going to do themselves any mischief, and they weren't that little. So they spent a lovely couple of hours playing in the beck, in the river. My husband and I looked around the property. And bizarrely, at this point, I had never been in the master bedroom of the cottage at all, because that had been my grandparents' bedroom and I had no call to go in there. So there was parts of this cottage that I'd never seen. I'd never seen it been extended about 25 years beforehand. I'd never seen that extension. So, it was kind of new for me as well. Anyhow, we looked around this property and I thought, I've got to ask my husband that question. And I was like, so what do you think? And bear in mind, it was a massive project. And he was like, yes. I was like, oh my God, really? And we both got really, really excited at this point. And that evening we spoke to my dad and he was like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. I won't put it on the market. And we agreed the price. We probably think, well, you're buying it off your dad. It must be really straightforward. I can tell you that was in May 2016. And we didn't get the keys to the property until April 2017. That's right. It took nearly 12 months for us to own this property. And it was 12 very frustrating months as well. And there was all sorts of obstacles in our way. One of them, obviously, straight away was, did we have the funds for it? And no, we didn't. So how were we going to get the funds? So it was all of those sort of obstacles that we had. And then some of the other obstacles became even more critical later on down the path. And one of the biggest obstacles we discovered is that because of this unique situation that the cottage is located in, our mortgage broker was like, nope, you absolutely cannot buy this property. And we were like, what? And they were like, no, you can't do it because you need legal access. This began several months of trying to contact the landowner of the access point and negotiate with them. That actually took another 3 years for us to finalise that, and several thousands of pounds. So we were left in this situation where 10 months had kind of rolled on, really. And at this point, my dad was a bit like, do you know what? Maybe I should just live there. And I was like, really? Do you want to live there? My dad was getting on a bit. And this is a very rural location. I was like, really? Do you want to live there? And he was like, no. I was like, right, let's make this happen. And we did. As I said, back in April 2017, we got the keys and then began almost 6 months of deep renovation. But that's another story. What I would say is that we had 12 months of obstacles, of things that were going to potentially pull us off track. And it would have been so easy and our life would have been so much simpler if we had walked away from it. And it always felt like the universe, our instinct, whatever you want to call it, gave us several opportunities to really question how much we really wanted this property and whether or not we really wanted it. And as I said, during those kind of 12 months, there were little obstacles, there were major obstacles. And every single time when we hit against an obstacle, there was an opportunity for us to walk away from this cottage. And we never did. And as I said, we've owned it since 2017. It's absolutely completely renovated. It's beautiful. And now as our own children have kind of grown up to a point where they're not so keen to spend time there, we actually have started to rent it out in the spring and the summer. And it now generates us another passive income stream into our lives. But it also gives us the opportunity to spend time there as well. There's so many reasons why I'm sharing this. First of all, if you really want something, if you truly desire to achieve something and you build that unshakable belief that you can achieve it, that you are open to receiving it, you will achieve it. You will have that success. You will definitely hit upon challenges. And I'm going to share in a moment the thing that kept me going, the thing that kept me on track and overcoming those obstacles. But it's just like in business. In business, we set our intentions, we set our goals out, and it is never a straightforward path from A to Z. It feels like a trek off into the forest without a map or any satellite navigation, and with very little resources or ability to figure out where you're going to and how you're going to get out of the forest. That's often what business feels like. And buying that cottage, securing our dream, it was exactly the same. We kept hitting against challenges, and it would have been so easy for us to have walked away. And I'm sure as you're listening to this, there are probably points in your business where you hit challenges and obstacles, and maybe things weren't going out particularly well for you. And perhaps you backed down, perhaps you backed away from actually overcoming those challenges and giving yourself the opportunity to grow so that you could actually achieve your heart's desires. I wanted to share this as an opportunity to demonstrate that you can achieve your dreams and you can overcome massive obstacles. And also the other side of things is this all ties into a time when my business finally started becoming highly profitable. I always put this down to the fact that we didn't necessarily have the money to buy this property and to renovate it. My business took off in 2016 and it generated us the money that we needed to complete lots of elements of it. So there's a money story with this as well. When you're really clear about what you are wanting money to show up for in your life, guess what? It will show up. So if you're a little bit woolly about what your money goals are, if you've never really set any goals, or you've never dared dream big enough, or you've held yourself back in any way, I want for you to take from this that you've got to dream big and you've really got to go for it, and you've got to ensure that you're excited about what money is going to turn up for. You're not just running your business to get money, to get clients, to work hard. And as the saying goes, how you do money is how you do everything. So I hope this episode has inspired you, and as I promised, I've got 2 resources for you. The first one is, if you're like, okay, I keep hearing about manifesting and visualizing, how do we even get started with this? You can get started today with my absolutely free wealth and abundance hypnosis, which will start to help you to program yourself so for more wealth and more abundance. You can find the details of that down in the show notes or over on my website, which is www.rachelsmith-thebusinessgrower.com. And the other resource is that every Thursday in my Facebook group, The 5-Figure Entrepreneur, at 1 p.m. UK time, I hold a mini masterclass, and I will be live to answer any questions you have about how you grow your business to 5 figures. So don't miss out on that opportunity to have your questions answered. If you have loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe. There's a brand new episode coming out every week. Until next time, bye for now.